So a tough week one loss for the Baltimore Ravens, dropping another game to Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs, 27-20. To get right into it, Lamar Jackson, I thought, played his tail off. I mean, 122 rushing yards, threw for another 270 or so. Got a touchdown. I thought he did everything he could to win this game, despite the fact that there were so many things that were glaringly concerning about this Ravens team that I want to get into right now. First off, I don't know what's going on with this brand new rule about about the lining up by the ball where you can and where you can't, but the fact that it drew 5 penalties on the offensive line, 3 in one series, I thought was a little excessive and a little ridiculous, quite frankly. But regardless of that, if these guys knew that this rule change was coming and how it was going to be called, if they had an idea of how it was going to be called, they should have done a better job. Now, Ronnie Stanley said post-game that it didn't really reflect what they were told. That's a thing that they got to deal with the referees going forward this season, because apparently this is going to be a thing that's going to stick around. But it's pretty interesting that illegal formation was called so many times on the Ravens sideline when they had the ball, but not as nearly as much as when the Chiefs had the ball. Maybe they were lined up correctly. Maybe there's a little bit of home cooking going on because they're the defending champs and it's Patrick Mahomes and you don't want to do anything to stump their success. But those are things that can't be proven. There's no factual evidence behind it, so it's all hearsay and conspiracy at this point. But to get into what I was very concerned about was the offensive line for sure, particularly at right guard. Chris Jones did whatever he wanted to that side of the offensive line, and he knew it. There was a point in the game where he literally pointed to one of his guys and said, "Look, I got this side because I know I can easily get past this guy." So we had to do a lot of extra stuff to give Lamar Jackson at least a little bit of time to operate in the offense. We had to send a tight end over there. We had to make sure a running back went over and chipped or stayed to make sure that keep Chris Jones off of Lamar. That makes it hard for any quarterback when you don't have enough time to really set and throw. And it showed itself, late in the game. There were times where the offensive line held up pretty well. And there were times where the offense had to change where we had to get the ball out of Lamar's hands as quickly as possible to try to get some yardage, whether it was Justice Hill or Zay Flowers, who I thought both had really good games. It was great to see Derrick Henry in a Ravens uniform and, traditional Derrick Henry, close to the goal line, you hand it off, knocks over a few guys on his way to the end zone. It was good. It was great to see that. It was great to see the Lamar, Derrick Henry, how that running game is going to look going forward. I think it's going to be very hard and very difficult to deal with because you really have to pick your poison. Are you going to deal with Derrick Henry coming at you with 250 pounds of muscle? Or are you going to deal with cat-like quickness of Lamar Jackson coming out of the backfield because you're so worried about Derrick Henry? So there were bad things and there were good things here, but that first bad thing was definitely the offensive line. Another that was kind of concerning was still the pass rush. Now, Odafe Oweh, they did get to Mahomes a couple of times, but there were a few times where they really missed critical tackles. And I know it's Patrick Mahomes. He does spectacular things no matter how good your defense is. That's why he's the greatest quarterback in the NFL right now, potentially chasing the greatest of all time. But there were a couple key plays here and there where I thought Oweh probably should have made that tackle on Mahomes. That way we made a scramble out and do his traditional sidewinder to Travis Kelce for a big gain in the first down. So it's little plays here and there where it's like the Ravens defense, probably could have made a stop. Probably in the grand scheme of things should have made a stop, but Mahomes did Patrick Mahomes thing. So you can only do but so much to try to contain this offense. I just thought maybe in that situation I thought he could have made that tackle, but that's just me. But the other thing was a good thing with this defense. The secondary looks very good. It looks like they have depth. It looks like they can contend with any great passing offense there is to be in the NFL. And Trenton Simpson, I can't say enough about this kid. I was very impressed with him last year and a little bit of time that he did play, especially when he started that last game that we didn't really need to win was against the Pittsburgh Steelers. I saw enough where I believe that if we were to lose Patrick Queen, which is what the Ravens ended up doing, Trenton Simpson would have filled in really good, and he showed it. He showed it last night for sure. I mean, he had a great couple of deflections. One that should have been Patrick Mahomes' second interception, but he somehow comes down with it. It was still a tremendous play by Simpson. He's made a couple of those, which is really important for a linebacker to be able to cover. I'm going to exercise a little bit of patience when it comes to new defensive coordinator Zach Orr, because I remember once upon a time when Mike McDonald came in as a new defensive coordinator coming out of Michigan, I was one of those people that said, this guy needs to go back to college. He does not know what he's doing. I don't think this defense that he's implemented is going to work out. I just don't think he's going to last long. But lo and behold, defense got great. Now he's a head coach with the Seattle Seahawks. So I'm going to exercise some patience with Zach Orr. There was a busted coverage, very uncharacteristic of us. Of the Ravens. Marlon Humphrey, just assumed that someone was in the back because of whatever call they got. He thought that he was going to have help over the top when Xavier Worthy got loose. Obviously, those kind of mistakes are inexcusable, and it doesn't matter who's a quarterback. You're very likely going to pay for that mistake. It just happened to be Patrick Mahomes who instantly saw that and made the Ravens pay for it. But again, it's Zach Orr's first game as a defensive coordinator. It's a different philosophy. It's not going to be the same as Mike McDonald. I expect the Ravens defense to definitely iron out some of those mistakes, and I expect a better performance. But all in all, the defense played pretty well against the Kansas City Chiefs, given how the offense at times got very stagnant. There was a point in time where Derrick Henry was kind of taken out of the game because of how the game was going. The tempo was really sped up, and the Ravens were playing catch up more so than going ahead. A lot of analysts are saying, like, well, why didn't Derrick Henry get more carries? Well, I thought that this was the point in the game where you had to pick up the tempo and score sooner than later, as opposed to slowing down the tempo a little bit when it comes to Derrick Henry. That's why you saw a lot more Justice Hill, and I thought in that sense that was the right call. It wasn't a repeat of the AFC Championship where the Ravens only ran the ball 6 times. I kept hearing and seeing that. It wasn't the same. I felt the game was not really the same in that regard because the Ravens did what they should have done. They should have ran the ball more. Lamar Jackson did what he should have done. Utilize both aspects of his game. Not just be a pocket passer, but take off and run when necessary and do design runs to keep the defense off balance. Again, I thought he played his tail off. Now, yeah, he missed a couple of very key throws late in the game in that last 2 minutes or so when he got into the goal line. Isaiah Likely was open. Zay Flowers was very much open. But at the same breath, it would be nice if the receivers could maybe help out your quarterback a little bit. I was reading a few tweets from some NFL wide receivers, Torrey Smith and Antonio Brown. Yeah, that Antonio Brown. And one thing that jumped out at me was like, look, in the scramble drill like that, you gotta park it for a second, like stop for a minute in the end zone and see if your quarterback can see you, and then maybe he'll find you on a dime if you stop. Don't keep moving, so to speak, at certain points in time. Now, everyone knows Antonio Brown's kind of a bit of a nut, but one thing he was really good at was playing wide receiver in the NFL. And if he's talking about that, I think this guy knows what he's talking about. He's pretty qualified in that regard. But because Lamar Jackson, because you are that good of a player, because you're that good of a quarterback, you're expected to not have those kinds of misses in that point in the game because all they're going to point at is that you can't get it done against Patrick Mahomes. You are not the same guy when it comes to playing the Kansas City Chiefs. I disagree with that. Again, I thought he played a great game. It just wasn't quite a perfect game to get it done against them. And by and large, you have to play almost perfect to beat this team. They have gotten better. This is not the same team that led the league in drop passes. They've got speed, and they've got skill players. Rashee Rice, I thought, was absolutely torching the linebackers of the Ravens all game long. They kept, credit to Andy Reid and the offensive coordinator, Matt Nagy, they put Rashee Rice in a position to succeed. A wide receiver on the linebacker 9 times out of 10 is probably going to win that matchup, especially with the calls that they had. That's why you saw Rice go off for over 100 yards receiving. That's another thing that the Ravens defense has to clean up. But I'm not going to put a whole bunch of stock into a Week 1 game. I know the magnitude of the moment because it was them, the Kansas City Chiefs, that stole a Super Bowl appearance away from the Ravens, quite frankly, because we all believe that team that the Ravens had last year was better than Kansas City top to bottom. But as I said before, it was because Patrick Mahomes did not make mistakes. Lamar Jackson did make mistakes. In this game, I thought Lamar played well, but you do have to make those throws because you're judged as one of the best players in the NFL, one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL, for sure. Those are the high standards, fair or not fair. You're expected to make those throws because you're that good. It's not because you're not a great player. It's exactly why you are a great player. You're expected to make those plays late in those games. There's a reason why we don't talk about certain quarterbacks at all, because we know that they're not on the level of a Patrick Mahomes, a Lamar Jackson, a Joe Burrow, or a Josh Allen. There's a reason for that. When you are up that high, the expectations are up there as high as you are. But again, I'm not putting a whole bunch of stock in Week 1. It was a tough loss, but the Ravens still had a chance to win at the end of the game despite everything that I was concerned about. It was just a tough play. I mean, Isaiah Likely made a hell of a catch. It was just that close. I believe that the Ravens were definitely going for two, and I thought they would have won the game had Isaiah Likely just got that toe down. It's week one. The offense is not used to each other. This is Derrick Henry's first game with the Ravens. It's his first real game with Lamar and how he plays. This offensive line is brand new. It's not the same. It's going to take a little bit of time to gel. I have full confidence in the Ravens that they'll get it together. And I haven't lost a shred of confidence in Lamar Jackson, especially late in games. I've seen enough to know that he can handle it. There's no way that I'm going to let this game tell me that Lamar can't get it done. I know he's 1-5 against Patrick Mahomes. I know that. You never want to have a losing record against the best players in the NFL. And Patrick Mahomes is the standard. No doubt about it. But it's not like these games were blowouts. These were one-possession games where it could have gone either way. A play here, a play there. That's the NFL.